Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to unravel the story of Nottingham's lace market. It's an incredible tale of how a district, once at the absolute heart of a global industry, basically faced total collapse and then was reborn as something completely different.
All right, let's just jump right in with the number that really sets the scene here. £5 million. Now think about this. Back in the early 20th century, that was the value of lace being exported every single year. That is a staggering amount of money for the time, and it tells you pretty much everything you need to know about the sheer scale and power packed into this one little district.
So where did all that money come from? Well, it's because the lace market wasn't just a player. It was the global powerhouse. I mean, for a while there, this one small part of a city in England was the undisputed, hands-down world capital of lace.
And boy, did it look the part. You can just picture it, right? A maze of these huge, impressive red brick Victorian warehouses just buzzing with thousands of workers. This was way bigger than just some local industry. It was a full-blown engine of international trade. We're talking about a luxury good, Nottingham lace, that was famous all across Europe, North America, and the whole British Empire. And the crazy amount of wealth it created, it literally built the city we know today. But you know how these stories go. That golden age, well, it couldn't last forever. The very threads holding this global industry together, they started to snap. And what followed was this steep, long decline that honestly threatened to wipe its entire legacy off the map. So, what was the culprit? The main reason for this whole downturn is a process that hit so many industrial cities hard: deindustrialization. It's a bit of a technical term, but all it really means is what happens when the manufacturing, the very backbone of a region, starts to shrink, or in some cases, just disappear completely.
And wow, this chart really shows you just how fast and brutal that impact was. Take a look. In 1914, right before World War I, you've got 245 factories chugging along. But then, just 7 years later, bam, that number has plummeted. We're talking about more than 50 factories just gone in less than a decade. That's a massive, massive hit.
So the key thing to get here is that this wasn't just one thing. It was a total perfect storm. You had the First World War, which absolutely devastated the economies of Nottingham's best customers over in Europe. I mean, who's buying luxury lace when you're rebuilding your country? So demand just got crushed. And at the exact same time, cheaper producers overseas started popping up, eating away at their market. It was a 1-2 punch that sent the industry into a decades-long spiral, until eventually the factories fell silent and the buildings were just left to rot.
But here's where the story takes a twist. That decline, as bad as it wasn't the end. In fact, it was the trigger for a major turning point. With the industry gone, the district itself was at a crossroads. The choice was stark: either let it all crumble into dust, just demolish it, or come up with a totally radical new vision for its future. Okay, so by the mid-20th century, the lace market was pretty much a ghost town. Derelict, abandoned, just a sad shell of what it once was. But then, something critical happened. In 1969, someone had the foresight to designate the entire area a conservation area. Now, this was a huge deal. It basically put a shield around all that historic architecture, protecting it from the wrecking ball and opening the door for a completely new way of thinking: preservation and renewal. And this right here, this captures that transformation perfectly. The buildings, the brick and mortar, they were saved. But what they were for, that was totally reimagined. Just look at the shift. What used to be industrial warehouses packed with noisy machinery, well, now they're stylish modern apartments and cool, creative offices. The industrial past literally became the foundation for a whole new residential and commercial future. How cool is that?
Now, there's a name for this kind of transformation, and you've probably heard it before. It's a classic example of what urban planners call gentrification. Basically, money starts flowing into an area, things get cleaned up and improved, and suddenly it starts attracting new people, often wealthier residents and businesses, and as you can guess, that pushes property values way up.
So this whole regeneration project, it did way more than just save a bunch of old buildings. It actually forged a brand new identity for the district. It reshaped it from the ground up into one of the most vibrant, most dynamic parts of the entire city.
I mean, if you go to the lace market today, it's just completely transformed. It's now one of the places to live in Nottingham. The streets are just packed with amazing independent bars, restaurants, and little cafes. It's a real cultural hotspot, too, with places like the National Justice Museum. Plus, it's right next to the Motorpoint Arena, so it's always buzzing with energy from big concerts and events. And that focus on independent businesses, that's actually super important for the local economy. It creates something economists call the multiplier effect. Think about it. When you spend, say, 10 quid at a local cafe, the owner uses that money to pay their local staff, who then spend it in other local shops. That money stays right there in the community, bouncing around and supporting tons of different businesses, instead of just getting sucked out of the area by some big national chain.
And a huge part of its modern identity is this whole Creative Quarter initiative. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate plan to attract businesses in cutting-edge sectors, digital media, fashion, design, the arts. It's anchored by awesome hubs like the Broadway Cinema, which is a local legend. And get this, it was even home to the UK's first cultural centre for video games. That really cemented its reputation as a place where cool, innovative stuff happens.
Okay, so it all sounds amazing, right? A huge success story. But it's not the whole picture. Because like any massive urban renewal project, this transformation didn't come without its own set of pretty significant challenges. It raises some really tough questions about who actually benefits when an area changes this much.
This table really lays out the trade-offs, kind of like a balance sheet. On the one hand, the positives are undeniable. The historic buildings are saved, there are new jobs, there's this vibrant cultural scene, all great stuff. But then, you look at the other side of the ledger. Soaring property prices and rents, more traffic and ingestion. And maybe the biggest one, the concern that all this investment and success was just concentrated in one spot and not really shared across the whole city.
And that really gets to the heart of a common criticism you hear about regeneration projects like this. People would point to the glittering success of the lace market, and then they'd point just down the road to the long-struggling, derelict site of the old Broadmarsh shopping center. It creates this real tale of two cities vibe, It raises that fear that you're just creating these shiny little pockets of prosperity while other areas right next door get left behind. So when you look at the whole journey of the lace market, from this industrial giant to a derelict ruin and now to this vibrant creative hub, it leaves us with a really crucial question. And it's a question that cities all over the world are struggling with right now. How can you bring an area back to life, preserve its history and character, without accidentally pricing out the very people and the diversity that made it special in the first place? That's a tough one.